This is the Average to Savage podcast with Paul Guarino. Everyone and anyone, athletes, celebs, and much more.
What's up, everybody? I'm back for another episode of the Average Savage podcast. Our special guest today is entrepreneur Mike Chaffin. Mike, how's it going?
Fantastic.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back in time a little bit. So what were your college days like? I know you went to University of Texas, Arlington.
Yes, I started out like a lot of people at UTA. I started out in engineering, which we all referred to as pre-business. Once I hit my first physics course, realized that engineering was probably not my strong suit, and ended up switching into marketing.
Gotcha. What made you switch to marketing?
You know, since I was a kid, I was always selling, whether it was, lawn mowing service to car washing service. I was always out there doing it and recognized that, hey, I'm an entrepreneur at heart and wanted to learn a little bit more and the marketing side and how better to push and sell my services.
Gotcha. And I know you went back to college eventually for your MBA, but in between that, you started your first company. So how did you get started with your first company?
Well, right after college, I, like a lot of people at the time, thought that my phone was going to ring. And I sat by for about 48 hours staring at a phone not ringing and realized they're not coming to me because I have a college degree. So went out and hustled, found a job in the software industry, and it was a young company, and they were on a rapid growth path, and really learned a lot about business through that process. Watched them grow from a $30 million company to over a $100 million company over a couple years. And at that point, I knew I wanted to do my own thing. So had my first failure with a company called Reunion's Data Services, trying to do basically what Classmates.com did. And at the end of that process, I had some mutual friends starting a software consulting firm. And I had enough technology background and sales background that I had one that was really strong on process reengineering and another person that was strong on systems development, and felt I kind of rounded them out with the sales. So had joined them. And, we had a pretty good successful run, growing it over 7 years to I think we maxed out about 173 employees. Gotcha.
And what year was this around?
Started that around 93.
Okay.
And, we kind of suffered the same fate a lot of technology companies did at that time, around 2000, when kind of the market fell.
Yeah.
And, we outlasted the dot-commers because we were pretty heavy in telecom. So I think we outlasted them by about 3 days, proudly.
Yeah.
And then from there, just did quite a bit of independent consulting after we had sold that business off.
And what made you go back to school, like during the time I know you were running your business too?
Well, at that time, I looked at it, I was, kind of filling spots on some of the consulting side. And, the MBA was, first off, something that was needed from a credibility standpoint. And, second, it really helped, kind of hone some of my skills. And SMU just had a phenomenal network as well. So that was, kind of the third reason I joined up and went through that program.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I'm assuming like back then, like it just meant more to have like a master's degree.
Oh, absolutely. And people looked at that as a necessity on the management consulting side.
Yeah, because I mean nowadays, like everyone has an MBA or something.
Exactly. I mean, I look at MBA today as like the college degree back in the 80s and 90s. It's just a requirement.
Yeah, definitely. Now going into, how did you meet up with Nelly and become his business manager?
It actually was through a friend and a lot of luck. I just happened to be at a friend's office when a friend of his friend, basically worked for Nelly, was in his security. And he was having some issues with, his staff had grown significant. And as an artist, you're rapidly growing and adding a lot of people around you. And, he had a jean line called Apple Bottoms that was, just starting off, and they were starting to struggle. And, he wanted someone to come in from the outside that had no connection and kind of take a look at his business. And we went through and saw some opportunities to fix apple bottoms. And we went from a $2 million company to a $120 million company over the next, I want to say about 6 years. And then from there, just started working, doing, he was real pleased with those results and just continued to stay on board, working through other projects and launching other businesses, some successful, some not so successful.
Yeah, definitely. And what was it like going from like a tech field to like kind of in the music industry? I know you're on like the business side of it, but
I tell you, it was a learning experience. In the business world, you had much tighter schedules. Stuff happened during the day. And, it was just that business space I knew. And then stepping into the business to consumer, there's a lot of people always trying to grab your role or play that, trusted confidant to the artist. And, it's a very aggressive industry.
Yeah, definitely. What are some other ventures you executed for Nelly or with him?
We went through full life cycle with this Pimp Juice energy drink. At the time, it was it wasn't a long-lived venture, but fun. It was based off one of his songs. We've been a little bit skirted in the restaurant business a little bit and took some hits there, but after that, we're looking in the CDB space right now. We have 3 Commas clothing line, which is an entrepreneurial brand with Mark Cuban. And right now we're working in the software space on basically a digital thank you app, so to speak. It's a blockchain-based app that allows people to ask for favors and reward friends with their own personal currency for favors.
Gotcha. Were you there when he had the Reebok deal?
Yes. Actually, we were in negotiations with a few shoe lines to come up with a deal, and Reebok was really trying to jump heavy into that space and gave us the most attractive deal and came out with the Air Dirties at the time.
Yeah, he was like one of the first hip-hop artists to get his own shoe, right?
Yeah, it was, a lot of athletes were doing it, and he was, just launched Sweatsuit, and he was doing very, very well, and Reebok wanted to step in that space. And I think one of the things that happened during that time is literally within days of signing the contract, Adidas acquired Reebok.
Oh, that's crazy.
And at that time, Adidas didn't have the same vision, and pretty much that's where the relationship decided to just go our separate ways.
Gotcha. Well, isn't it crazy now that all the brands are doing it with artists now?
Oh, absolutely. No, the one thing with Nelly, he has been a pioneer. A lot of artists get their career directed. Nelly, since I've known him over the last 15 years, has directed his own career. And, he's topped the country chart twice. He's done a lot of firsts in the industry. And, I always think he does it a heck of a lot more quiet than other artists.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, when I was talking to Jay Irving on the last podcast, we were talking about Nelly going hitting the number 1 on the country charts because you know how like Little Xanax and Billy Ray Cyrus have their song right now. Yeah. So once again, he was one of the pioneers of that before they did that this year. But
and he's done a lot for the St. Louis market as well. He's well loved there, and I remember at one point they said, St. Louis is known for 3 things, and the Arch, Lindbergh, and Nelly. And for those that don't think Nelly's one of the 3, need to go over to Africa and see a bunch of kids wearing St. Louis Cardinal hats, and they have no clue who the Cardinals are.
That's crazy.
And they're just marrying Nelly.
That's crazy. That's cool. So yeah, going into 3 Commas, the clothing brand, you started with Nelly and Mark Cuban, correct?
Yes. Mark and I first, and actually Mark approached us because we did a lot in the apparel industry, our success with apple bottoms and everything. And Mark and Nelly had known each other in the past. And, I'm from Dallas, so I'd always reached out to Mark and, sent Nelly's calendar. And, if you ever had friends or anything that needed access to it. And one day Mark reached out wanting to do, kind of a web store with, just some fun shirts and quotes and everything. And I stayed up over the weekend, worked through coming up with cool logos for him, Mark Cuban clothing, and sent it to him. And for those that know Mark, he's a man of few words, but he'll respond to every single text. And so I sent him the logo designs and asked him which one he liked. And he just responded no, and then had 3 commas. And I had no clue what he meant. And I replied back with 3 question marks. And he just said, there are 3 commas in $1 billion. And And I thought that was absolutely clever. We went through, did some more designs, and, he wore the shirt on Shark Tank one time. And Mike Judge just happened to see it, wrote it into the script of Silicon Valley. And at that stage, we decided, let's do a little bit more with this. Mm-hmm. So we spent some more time on the logo, got Nelly involved because, just from a fashion sense standpoint and reach, we thought he believed in the brand, believed in the concept, and, really helped come up with some new designs that we plan on launching in the spring.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. How'd you guys get the name? But you answered it. And what about what's the long-term goal? Is it to get into retail or stay online?
Mark's always an online guy, and so that's our preference between Amazon and our online store. He also, invested heavily in or not heavily, but invested in a fulfillment center. Mm-hmm. So we got great rates, and it's really helped out his other companies. And that's the thing with Mark. He does a great job at, over and above all the other sharks at supporting his ventures. He has an individual there that really builds relationships with Amazon, looked at fulfillment being an issue for a lot of Shark Tank companies. So they went out and found an up-and-coming fulfillment house, invested, and helped them grow. So they do a great job at supporting us.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. So I saw you're also involved in Stadia Ventures. What is that all about?
St. Louis University has a professor there that basically rebuilt their entrepreneurship program, and I think went from unheard of to 9th in the nation. And he basically looked at one of the problems with a lot of accelerators. They focus on the best technologies, the best anything that comes through. So you could have, a car wash technology sitting next to esophageal transplant. So when you try to sit there and pull in judges, advisors, and everything through this process, there is that no consistency of people you can bring in. Mm-hmm. Well, they focused on sports and esports. And I've been involved for a couple years now, and they do 2 cohorts a year. And now they go through about 4,000 applications to narrow it down to 10 companies. Those 10 companies come in and present to 120, 130 judges. And these judges are everywhere from the head of innovation at Nike, head of innovation of Under Armour, to professional athletes, professional sports teams. It's really a great group of judges. And the amazing thing that the founder of Stadia has done is really integrate the judges as a family. Mm-hmm. So he encourages all of us working, talking together in between cohorts. And it really has developed a family. Anytime anybody needs something, they can reach out to, whether someone just judged once or been to all 7, and, they get a call back. So it's been a phenomenal experience. And I always love when these technology platforms come and people say, hey, we're the first, and everybody's kind of looking at each other. We just saw 3 in the last cohort.
That's crazy. Is there anything that stood out to you so far that you've seen?
They've had a variety. I've learned a lot about esports. I'm not a gamer myself, but the audience is absolutely amazing, and the technologies and just the social side of it's incredible. I mean, you look at what Fortnite's done, and the audience they draw bigger than Facebook, bigger than a lot of the social applications out there. So that's been fascinating, as well as it's a data-driven. Sports is becoming more and more data-driven. Artificial intelligence stepping in, really trying to define the consumer. Mm-hmm. And it's frightening knowing that you have cameras at the stadium, and that camera is just on your looks doing demographic analysis. So Major League Baseball can see okay, here's the average age, the gender, here's how many season ticket holders actually showed up to their games. I mean, it's amazing the amount of data they're looking at today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, going back to esports, I think I still don't get the people watching people play on Twitch. I mean, I get it, but I don't see myself ever watching someone play video games.
Oh, and the funniest thing, Nelly 10 years ago was pushing me, and I hate to say this, but I laughed at him. He's like, we need to make this software where people can watch me play Snoop and individuals play each other. and he called it out way before Twitch. And I looked at that, and at the time, I was like, who wants to watch someone else play a video game? And I couldn't even fathom that. And, you know, I have to humbly say he was right, and he was right long before anybody else.
Yeah, even I remember one day I turned on ESPN, and they were doing a draft for, like, the 2K League, like the basketball.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Well, sports teams are, and the price is so inflated, sports teams are trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And when you've got these, you know, executives that have no idea about gaming coming in and trying to figure out, you know, the gamer experience, it's tough. Yeah. And, you know, your first inclination is buy a gaming league or buy a gaming team. And, you know, it's a challenge to try to pull in that knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. You probably just have to hire like a 15-year-old.
Exactly. And can they give the best business, business advice on valuation at that age?
I don't know. You never know. Going to like everything you're doing right now, like how do you balance like working with all these people and companies?
Poorly, I will say. That's probably the biggest challenge. And I tell you, the one person who, you know, is definitely a role model in that category is Mark. He knows how to say no better than anybody out there. And, you know, that's one of the biggest things you got to learn, you know, how to do. Because I remember what it's like being on the other side when you're needing help with your startup. And, you know, I have such passion at helping people. But, you know, you could spend 80 hours a week helping other people get their business off the ground and realize that you haven't taken care of yourself. And that's one of the hardest things, to basically have that discipline to say no.
Yeah, definitely. What have you learned from like creating your first company to like your current business ventures? I
tell you, sales, your forecasted sales are never going to be what's expected. And your expenses are going to be twice as much as you forecast. Right. And then, you know, cash flow is king, and you got to really watch that. When you get in a cash crunch, that's the last time, you know, that's when you least want to be asking for money. So it's really managing that and watching the right numbers. I think so many people get their company started and they're not prepared. And then at times there's a risk you have to take. And not a lot of people, you know, want to throw everything on the table to risk.
Yeah, definitely. What advice would you give to a young entrepreneur?
I think some of the best things people can do, especially when you're in school, you're the least riskiest person to talk to other executives. You know, everybody wants to give advice, but once you graduate, they look at you as a time waste. So, you know, I advise everybody that's in school, that's thinking about going down the entrepreneurship path, build your network and build it aggressively, and make sure and look at every relationship and figure out how you can give value to that relationship before you ask. Like with Mark, you know, I probably sent Nelly's schedule for a year and a half, 2 years before we ever, you know, met face to face to talk on his apparel store. But, you know, I was genuine, and I didn't have any need for him at the time, but I knew it was a relationship and someone that I respected that, you know, I invested the time in. So I definitely recommend they do that, as well as be a sponge on data. Make sure it's something that you're interested in and that you have the time to devote. If you're just planning to make it a 9-to-5 thing, you know, it's probably not the right situation for you.
Yeah, even going back to what you were saying about the being in college, I remember just like emailing people, and when you say you're like a student, they're more willing to help you than if you're obviously not a student.
Oh, and I think people love giving advice, and it's genuine. Yeah. But once you're out of school, they look at you asking for a job or asking for a sale or something. And at that point, it goes back to, you know, you need to learn to say no more.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you ready for some fun questions? They're going to go from average to savage.
Oh, excellent. Bring it.
All right. What's your favorite song right now?
That's actually a real good question. I mean, I have heard Ride With Me a million times, but always when you see that audience and how energized they get when he sings that, and when that music first comes on, it's amazing. So the energy is wrapped around that. And, you know, just when you see an artist perform it, you know the history behind it. I think there's more of an emotional tie there.
For sure. Who's one person that you never worked with that you want to work with?
Oh, that's actually a great question. I think someone that would be interesting and make me laugh probably more than anything would probably be 2 Chainz, and looking at what he's doing in world's most valuable or most expensivest. So he I think would be funny as all get out to work with.
All right, I like that. What do you think's the hardest part is of being an entrepreneur?
As you're growing a business, constantly begging for money, and then making those tough decisions on employees, because as your business grows, some people just don't grow fast enough with it. And, while you believe in loyalty, sometimes you got to remove people ahead of when you want.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and could you let the people know where they can find you on social media?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook as well, and Twitter and Instagram. So,
all right. Once again, I appreciate you coming on.
Paul, great hearing from you, and great talking to you. I can't wait to hear Jay's thing so I can make fun of him.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks.